Good afternoon. My name is Angela Satchell. I am the Chief of Enterprise Architecture and Standards at NSA. And we're responsible for data-driven architecture here at NSA. We um, work to make sure that the architecture is captured and in one consistent manner, and we are also doing standards. So we operate the standards program here at NSA. Um, so in the standards program, we service all areas across the enterprise. We do IT standards, we do cybersecurity, we provide process standards for our engineers, and so soup to nuts, we are standards. If you need a standard, you can request it from us, and we go out and get it, or we make sure that standards are used across the agency. So I am on slide 3. So to tell you a little bit about how we do that here at NSA is we structured ourselves pretty much in the same manner as the governance structures are. So I'm going to go down, if you're looking at the slides, I'm going to go down the middle column, which is all orange, and explain. So the NSA CIO is responsible for the overall standards program. He has delegated that down to our chief systems engineer, who is my chief, actually. And he is really the approval authority for most of the standards at NSA, with the exception of the IT standards, which are delegated to the Capabilities Architecture Review Board, or CARB, as you see. And that's a set of folks who are the architects across NSA. And so they're responsible for making sure the standards are considered and used in the building of our systems. And they do that via the NESC, which is the NSA Enterprise Standards Council. And what they do is to recommend to the CARB and to the system engineer, which standards should be used and across NSA. And so we are, which is pretty much where I kick in, the NESC. Me and my group kind of run that. And so what we do is we work with technical experts, which you see as they're called out as focus groups, to make sure that the standard is sound, similar to the way the twigs work. The standards are sound, and there's something that we can indeed implement. So they do their work. We do a recommendation to the NES. The NES sends it off to either the chief system engineer or to the CARB for approval. And the standards, once they're approved, go into the NSA CSS Enterprise Standards Repository. So next slide, 4. So we are under the authority of Policy 10-3. And Policy 10-3 really governs how engineering is carried out here at NSA. And so it gives us our authority, it gives us our roles, our responsibilities, and out of that we have written a charter for our council, which delegates authorities to the appropriate council entities here at NSA. So that's how we do business. So the next slide talks a little bit about the focus groups, which are really very important for us because anybody at NSA can request a standard, and it is our job to get that standard for them and help for their use. However, not all standards are going to be used across NSA. So we look to these focus groups to do the legwork to figure out, is this a standard that you're going to just use for your particular application, or does it need to be interoperable with other things here at NSA or in the IC or NDOD? So the focus groups become the heart of all the work that we do. Next slide. Here's a little bit about our process. We thought that was interesting to bring out. How do we do this, right? So the input is somebody requests the standards. And as I said before, we send it to the focus groups, which is a set of SMEs that look to see, is this a good standard? Is this something we should be using? And then we write a justification that includes a review of the standard and the impact that it will have. And then we send it to the NUS, and the NUS gets it approved, and then it goes to either the CARB or to the chief systems engineer, and we give it a status. And I think these statuses are consistent across DoD, so I want to explain any of them except for the legacy avoid. So if there's a new standard that comes out, however, the system has to be interoperable with something that's built with an older standard, we call it legacy avoid. And what that's supposed to do is to have you start looking at the new standard, but making sure that you understand that there's an older standard that you're going to have to adhere to, or at least be cognizant of when you build your new system. And the last slide talks a little bit about our repository. So the repository is licensed. So not all standards are in there. Not all standards are in there, and not all standards are accessible to everybody. But it contains all the standards pretty much from the JUS and anything that we have sent through the NES, and that's what we do. Do we have any questions?